So, we will now embark upon the concluding sessions, 2 sessions, session 5 and 6 of this second week of our course on marketing management part 1. As you have realized that in this week, we are looking at both internal environment and external environment of a business to frame a good marketing strategy. So, you have seen that how we talked a little bit about the competitor analysis, the external environment. Subsequently, we talked about the internal environment and strength, weakness, opportunity and threat. We also discussed about the political, economic, social, technical analysis that are necessary to frame a good marketing strategy. Today, in the concluding 2 sessions, we would like to go deeper and wider in this important arena of competitive strategy formulation and competitive strategy deployment. So, competitive analysis is an analysis of the competitors with respect to your current position. Now, obviously, competitors can be direct competitors and or can be indirect competitors. Indirect competition is a particular phenomenon which vastly has permeated almost all businesses. For example, if you go back 10 years, then people who were competing in the music industry were quite distinct from the people who were competing in the phone industry. But today, if you take any mobile phone service company, whether they are only doing telephony as we understood earlier, which is basically a voice application, or they are in the business of digital content delivery, which includes music and various other forms, is a question very difficult to answer. So, perhaps in years to come, we will see that the traditional distribution channel of music industry in the form of CDs, DVDs, cassettes, etc., will all merge into on this platform of mobile telephony or the mobile internet as we also often call it. So, with the 4G and other advanced systems coming in for mobile content delivery, music, the predominant way of delivering music will be now that mobile telephony platform. As a result, what is competition in the music industry and what is competition will be in the telephony industry will be indistinguishable. And this is the nature of direct indirect competition or local and crossover competition. So, as you see today, who is your competitor and who is your supplier and who is your collaborator, these questions are often very difficult and very complex to answer. In many industries, you will be working with companies who will be your competitor in one field and will become your collaborator or supplier in another field. For example, we know that Samsung and Apple for mobile phones with Android phone and iOS phones, they are fiercely competing with each other. But in many other areas, Samsung is a prized supplier, is a coveted supplier of iPhone and other phone manufacturing companies, because they are very strong in semiconductors and components. And similarly, in display systems and others, these mergings happen, and therefore, it is quite difficult these days to understand the nature of your competition until and unless you use something like this diagram. and you meticulously plot all the different people who are directly head on competing with you or indirectly competing in some form or the other, or might actually cross over from their current position to come directly into your almost direct competition line. So, people are all the time transiting from here to there or from here to there. So, this is the graph, view graph, that will be quite useful often to map out your entire competitive, what we call competitive landscape. So, you fill up all these blocks and know your competition where who is situated. So, to identify competitors, you have to analyze them in terms of their product features and quality with respect to your product features and quality. Similarly, their customer relationship strategies, their customer retention strategies, and as you see, maybe 5 years back this discussion on CRM strategies would have come somewhere here, but we have now brought it up right next to the product or service feature and quality, because this is the primary mode of competition today, as we have discussed earlier. Then you have to also study R&D strategies of your competition and what kind of marketing mix. This is the tactical side of the strategy, that what is their your competitors' price, promotion, distribution, supply chain management strategies. All these data collection, it must happen continuously. So, usually today in any large organization, or in some cases even for startups, you have to deal with a massive amount of data collected on all these heads for all the competitors. The competitors are not only direct competitors. Earlier it would have been enough to do a competitive analysis here, but today we have to do this for the whole map, and we have to take data, collect data for all of these heads. So, data analysis, marketing information system has become a very complex, exciting and very important arena, which we will take up next week in more detail. So, once have all this data about the customer, and we will discuss next week some of the techniques of the analyzing the data. But once you have the outcome of your analysis, then basically competitive analysis will have to be merged with customer analysis. So, understand customer needs and wants, identify current and potential competitors. So, which means customer needs is a fountainhead, that is where marketing starts, because all marketing, as we have discussed, is an approach towards the need fulfillment, whether an articulated need or a latent or unarticulated need. And what we are saying is that you have on one hand the customer need analysis, on the other hand you have to see which competitor is meeting those sets of needs in which different way, and you have to therefore create a whole matrix of these are the needs, and competition A, this is how they are meeting the needs, competition B, this is how they are meeting the needs, and then you have to do your position analysis. We will discuss that with some example very soon. And also of course, this whole segment about positioning we will discuss in much more detail when we discuss segmentation, targeting, positioning, differentiation, etc. So, now as you can see here on this graph, understand customer needs and wants, identify current and potential competitors, do that together. So, industry analysis, which we have already discussed, you have to also now merge that with supplier analysis, and finally you have to understand the competitors in terms of the customer needs, and then you have to determine the competitor strategies present and future, and so it is not written here, but we should add here, then you have to do the competitive SWOT analysis of you versus your competitor A, B, C, D and so on. We will take up, as I said, an actual example and show how this is done. To conclude theory or conceptual aspect of it, that competitors, we have to understand current competitors, we have to understand potential competitors, and potential competition. At that stage, one very important is to look at barriers to entry. Sometimes when you launch a new product or you are strengthening a new product, then not only you look at the features etc., you will also look at the barriers, different types of barriers. And as when we discussed this PEST concept or we discussed the SWOT concept, then you would have understood that there are not only direct price barrier or barriers with respect to distribution chain, there are various other types of barriers that can be created, like for example, using your relationship. You can make it very difficult or very inconvenient for the customer to switch. So, creation of barrier is also now not a reactive strategy, but more a proactive strategy. So, often these days one actually maps out that okay, these are the people who might come into my field and what kind of barrier can I build, so that they will have less incentive to come into my market. Sometimes you may actually go forward and compete and nip in the bud a potential competitor, because you can offer so much competitive heat to them, they will be busy and not think about coming and attacking into your market. So, these as you see, in general we can say that competitive strategy today has to become a lot more proactive rather than react to competitive moves. So, these barriers that we were talking about can be created by economies of scale. You can set up such a large facility that in future anybody who tries to come into your market, you can make them almost bankrupt, because you can manipulate your pricing, because you have the economy of scale. So, you have the cost leadership. So, you will have a lot more ability to sustain for a certain period hefty discounts, which will make the new entrants' life very difficult. So, these are actually all these active reactive strategies, competitive moves and counter moves. We will discuss this again. At this moment we will look at these are the various ways of creating barrier by economy of scale, lack of product differentiation, capital requirement, distribution channel, the switching cost. This is not only the monetary cost, but often actually convenience itself can be a I mean, take for example, in the mobile phone industry, even today the service companies are resisting more this what we call number portability, because once your number becomes independent of your supplier, people do not want to change supplier because their mobile phone number is going to change and it is hassle to inform all your contacts about your new number. Now, if the number can be now made portable, which is what a telecom regulatory authority they want, but the and that will actually dissolve a certain aspects, barriers to entry barrier today which exists because of that number and familiarity and so on. Switching costs, the regulatory authorities or customers, they want this switching cost to become lower and lower, and competitors, they would like to increase this switching cost as far as possible or make it as inconvenient as possible, because that is a proactive strategy to enhance loyalty. So, these are, you can see some, there are things that are what we normally portray in a positive light, which is that open competition, as much competition as possible, also has a sort of a dark underbelly, where actually companies have to deliberately strategize so that they are back is protected, their flank is protected. We will discuss that in more detail. At this moment, important to understand that these are the important ways to create barriers.
Yeah, I would just like to add probably this some of the examples, like you have talked about mobile telephony. We take this DTH service provider. So today what happens is, if you want to just wants to change your service provider from your current service provider A to current service to the next potential,
it's direct to home television.
Yeah. So you have a set top box, and then you have wiring, and then you have investment in yeah. So all those are basically again a sort of physical barriers to switching from one service provider to the other. So these are, but however, probably in future the technologies can make even those switching cost or barriers will come down. Supposedly your
the same set top box should be able to serve, and technically we can easily see that there is no reason why that cannot happen.
Cannot happen. Another thing is, probably supposedly more and more people probably in metros are having this Wi-Fi inside the home. So if your TVs are now going smart TVs, and they start receiving those signals.
So just like on my phone, I can go from one Wi-Fi zone to the other Wi-Fi zone,
start using,
or at in the same mall there may be 2-3 people giving Wi-Fi, and I can log on to any one of them. What you are saying is that it should be possible, and I think that is absolutely correct, that ultimately the pressure of the market and power of the customer is going to prevail over all the other types of these kinds of artificial barriers that have been created.
Another probably a type of barrier which is very important, because this TRIPS regulation across the world is going on. So intellectual property rights regime which is going to be implemented across the countries. So that is a sort of one barrier which is going to be there. So if you have your patents or other intellectual property rights, that will act certainly as a barrier for the organization to basically enter into a market, or probably inhibits their ability to compete in certain markets to the incumbent who has those intellectual property
absolutely rights. Right, absolutely right. As I was mentioning in the beginning of this session, that the relationship with the competition earlier was very clear. It was a relationship based on conflict and competition, but today legally there are a number of different types of coexistence, cooperation approaches that are encouraged by the regulators or by the marketplace, by customers, so that one service provider's offerings or one product offerings become compatible with others. So today, for example, as Professor Mishra was pointing out, that in direct to home television, each set top box is unique to a particular service provider, but once a new type of box comes into play, and technologically we can see that is a very marginal amount of investment will be necessary to create a box which should be able to talk to any service provider, and when that happens, then coexistence and cooperation among the content providers. So today Tata Sky, Airtel, Videocon or Dish TV, all these companies, they will have to sit together along with HBO and Star and Doordarshan and NDTV or India Today, and they have to sit together and realize that coexistence and cooperation will have to be a reality of their competitive structure. So in a way, this intensity and the pressure from customers, where they want to dissolve all the artificial barriers to entry, will force a lot of changes in the nature of competition. So conflict and competition, the older style of competitive strategy formulation and deployment, will have to work hand in hand with the new forms of coexistence, cooperation. So a new terminology has come in. If you search for this terminology, you will find reference to interesting books and papers, which is called co-opetition. That means coexistence, cooperation, that part is combined with competition, and it is called co-opetition. Because as I said earlier and during this session, that in today's marketplace, the same company may be your competitor in one field, maybe your supplier in another field, maybe your collaborator in another field. So, and therefore, these mixed pictures will become an everyday reality, and therefore, the nature of competition is changing. The nature of competition is changing, and we are seeing new forms coming up. In the earlier years, collusion, which is when the competitors surreptitiously get together to take advantage of the customer. This happens more in oligopolistic types of markets, which we have discussed before, where few competitors dominate 80-90% of the market. Then those 2 or 3 companies which dominate 80-90% of the market may behind the scene work together to hold the price steady in spite of costs coming down, or may try to push it upwards even when there is no cost push upwards, and so on. As you can see, for example, in banking, often when RBI, Reserve Bank of India, they reduce the rates, then the banks sort of tacitly they have understanding, and they do not pass on that reduction very readily to the customers. Then there will have to be some regulatory pressure from the government, from RBI, then the banks are they reluctantly then agree. These things therefore has made it a little bit the situation has become a little confusing, or I would say complex, that what used to be earlier a zero sum game, that means one company gains at the cost of the other company, the market is no longer that simple. So, the games that are played, and incidentally we have good courses also available on NPTEL on game theory and how games are deployed for strategies. You can, if you are interested, you can study it in more detail. In our course, we will perhaps discuss it in a little in shorter form later on, when we go towards the concluding part of this session, this module, the whole marketing 1, and we will perhaps also discuss it in marketing 2, this aspect of games as in strategies, and how the zero sum games are giving way to different other types of payoffs and counter payoffs. So, I think what used to be earlier very much frowned upon and called collusion, which was actually taking the customer for a ride, is now giving way to collaboration and cooperation among competitors under the pressure of customers and under pressure of regulators, and competition game is changing. This is where we end this session, and in the next session I will take up a particular case and show you how in reality today analysis is done, competitive analysis is done, and how competitive strategies are formulated using those analysis. Thank you.
Thank you.